Ready?
Let's give it a shot.
The Sports Wrap Olympic style, I believe, in action today is welcome to the show, everybody. It's the last Monday in July.
Can you imagine that?
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that.
Well,
The month of July. Matter of fact, as I was walking into the Rainier Muni here in downtown Rainier, I had a hard time believing it had been a week since we'd been here. That's how fast it's going.
it did. It ripped right by, and there were a lot of things going on. So, especially with this Olympics, the fact that they're even pulling it off is really pretty amazing. And, and it seems to be, for whatever...
Yeah, I have to admit, with the number of cases that were there originally, how many cases they had prior to, I was afraid they were going to have to stop it, but they're too far into it now. They're what, 4 days in? I hate to say that's too far into a 16-day event, but it's too far to unless something really unforeseen. I mean, if the cases went out of this world, but this is going to happen. The money is there. They need the money.
Do you think Team USA basketball might want to end it?
We talked about this last week, didn't we? We talked about them 2 weeks ago when they lost in an exhibition game or two or whatever it was, and I told people don't go into a panic mode. You watched? I didn't watch a lot of it. Because by the time it was on, I already knew what had happened, so I didn't really want to put too much effort into it. But every time I flipped through the channel and I got to the game, we were ahead.
Except for 16-2 loss at the end.
Yeah, that 16-2 run in the last 3 minutes.
And the fact that they held Kevin Durant to 10 points.
Foul trouble, I heard, had a lot to do with that.
Had a lot to do with it. I put it this way. France beat them, and at the end, they didn't even take a jump up and down. They just beat the USA basketball. They're used to it. And if you take a look at, and I mean, Slovenia just hammered Argentina, and Argentina has traditionally been pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
And Luka got 49 points, and now you see NBA basketball from all over the world. They've been from China, from Eastern Europe, from Western Europe, from Africa, Spain, all the rest of these countries. Every country has some basketball players. And so I think that we're probably going to have to get used to the USA is not going to control this game. I mean, we brought it to the world after World War II,
To me, the thing about this is does this put the United States out of the medal round? Well, they're not going to lose another game in the qualifying here.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So they're going to make the medal round. So you had to beat everybody anyway. It really, maybe you get a little more tired because you got to play a stronger opponent in the first round. But after that, I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater, let's just say.
I think they're the ones that are more disappointed than any of the rest of us. But you have to understand that the equality and the comparability of these teams is a lot closer now than it's ever been. And it's just,
no doubt about it.
10-15. In 92, when the superstars went over and won the gold medal, and Jordan and Shaq and all the rest of those characters, nobody could have touched that bunch.
No.
And nobody could touch it today.
I was going to say, nobody who's playing in this Olympics could have even got close to competing with that team.
No.
Even the present American team.
Yeah.
Couldn't have. I don't think so.
But those days are gone now.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so look at the superstars in the NBA. Are all of them, all of the American superstars, are they there? No. So
actually,
it's a different animal, and it's not time to panic. But again, another wake-up call for the boys that you better show up and you better start playing ball.
Well, and I mean, I don't panic. I welcome this as bringing competition to a great sport at the Olympics. Before, there really wasn't a whole lot of competition. This is the first time they've lost in 25 games. That's a lot of Olympic games. And so you're right. It's not what can you say? We're 25-1.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. We're not supposed to lose though. That's
supposed to
That's
lose.
the way it is.
Yes.
So what's been maybe is that the biggest? I wrote down here.
Oh.
What's the biggest shock? Is that the biggest shock so far of the Olympics?
No, I think I think that the biggest shock probably is our women's gymnastic team.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've pulled right up to snuff. But you know, they got this Sun Lee. She is the first Hmong American to be on an Olympic team, and I just think, you know, being from St. Paul, and you take a look at this, you know, I mean, number one, she's about this big. You know, she ain't very big, and you know, and she's got
None of
this
those
smile on her
gymnasts
face.
are.
No, she's got this smile on her face, and when they flash and show the parents, here they are, immigrants from Vietnam and all the rest of that, they really couldn't be prouder, and that epitomizes to me what an American Olympic team should be.
The American women, gymnastic women, are in second place, or
Yes.
qualified second. Just like the men's basketball team.
Yeah.
Let's not get carried away. I will say this: Simone Biles did not perform well in the trials. She did not perform extremely well the other night. The Americans have their hands full. I guess, you know, at about 1 a.m. Tuesday morning time, our time, is when they will start. I wonder how many people will wake up rather because they can't wait the 18 hours to watch it cut up by NBC on prime time. I know I watched a little bit the other night in the middle of the night, but gave up because the eyelids were way too heavy. But it's a little shocking to think that we've talked about how great this team is. They've won two team titles in a row, and that we're on the edge of whatever here. I think they're going to pull it out, but the Russians they're not going to let it go easily.
And somebody brought this up. The team is so great, and they've been on top for so long. They have such a target on their back. And who else is better to pull off these targets than these Russian gymnasts? And they are very good, men and women.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's you know, so like I say, I'm not a big gymnast expert, but you just seen, and you could tell that they weren't right up to where they should be.
What's been the most fun thing to watch?
The most fun thing to watch. You know what? You might not believe this, but the other day I turned into synchronized diving.
I got it written down right here, George.
How hard is that?
I was amazed because they talk about the quirky sports.
Yes.
Quirky, that's the word I'm going to use for it. 3x3 basketball, 3-on-3 basketball. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and very little, because that's a quirk, and that's a quirk that Tim doesn't like. When synchronized diving started 20 years ago, 16 years ago, I'm like, what are they doing to diving? And then the other night or last night, whenever it was, I started watching it, and I'm kind of like, holy cow, they're really good at it.
They're really good.
They're really good. So it's not only is it executing the dives, and not that the dives are particularly hard like you would see other things, but the spin rates, it's freaky.
The water entry, the splashes are almost identical. And you look at that, and then there's people that can come up with critiques of these, and it's just like, oh, you can critique that. Look pretty good to me.
Look very good to me, yeah. So did you watch skateboarding?
I did watch some of the skateboarding.
What did you think of that?
Well, I tell you, first off, I'm thinking skateboarding is a worldwide phenomenon, and I'm watching kids from China and from Japan and from
States,
all over from the States, and and you watch and you just think, talk about a phenomenon that became an Olympic sport. And I remember.
It's X Games, and you wonder if it'll stick around. I have to admit, I watched probably better than 90 minutes of it over the 2 nights with the men and the women, which was probably far too much to watch about skateboarding. But I have to admit, I kind of like to watch what they can do, and until they put it into slow motion, it really doesn't do justice what they're doing.
No.
it's challenging. Did you watch surfing?
A little bit of surfing, but
I didn't see not one thing.
No, but I really wasn't kind of understanding what they were looking for. What I have yet to see that I want to is watch the climbing. I've heard a little bit about climbing. The lead climbing is kind of.
And I don't even know. It may have not started yet. I don't even know.
I'm not sure it has either. And then the boulder climbing, where you literally hand over hand climb boulders. And the last one is a speed timing up and down, or get up as high as you can. And in many instances, in the time allotted, you can't get to the top.
Okay.
So it's got to be difficult. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
Did you see the start of the triathlon last night?
I saw the bike part of the triathlon. And
They moved the start of the triathlon to earlier in the morning to avoid the heat. So they started it at 6:30 their time, I believe, which works out to about 4:30 our time. So Sunday afternoon, I'm flipping through the channels and trying to keep my eyes open, and they go to start the triathlon. Well, about half of them jump in the water and the other half didn't.
And a boat got in the way.
Because there was a boat in the way.
Yeah.
So the starter, he must not have been paying attention, because I don't know what the boat was doing there. But anyway, they got everybody in the water and got them out of the water. And that's one of the goofs of the whole thing. I got to watch weightlifting last night.
I saw a little bit of it today.
Yesterday afternoon. And to me, that's one of the old-time Wide World of Sports, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, Howard Cosell, Jim McKay, Kurt Schinkel. It brings me back to Dad sitting in the chair, we're sitting on the floor, and the big Russian, the heavyweight Russian, I can't think of him. If you showed a picture of him, I'd say, that's him.
Alexei somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the heavyweight and lifting the weights back in the '76 Olympics back in Montreal that we talk about all the time. And just to watch these guys do their thing is pretty cool. And so I like to watch that. We got a gold medal in fencing and foil in the ladies, which was fun to watch. Again, it seems like the electronics is a little too almost gimmicky to me, but I understand why it's there. So that's been fun. And of course, we haven't even mentioned that softball is going for the gold medal. Kind of scarily, because I think they've only scored in 5 games. I think they only scored like 11 runs, 9, 10 runs. I mean, not many.
No, the competition is surprisingly close, because they all have dominant pitchers, and it's just and you watch like some of and you forget they're playing this Olympics in Japan. How crazy are Japanese for baseball, softball?
Can you imagine what the crowds would have been like if they would have been able to have people there?
And for some of these athletes, that's really a crime, because they perform better when there's a crowd there.
Swimming, of course, in full force, and obviously it's been very competitive. It's not like the Americans are winning.
No.
Excuse me, in overabundance, but they are having their share of medals. And Katie Ledecky, probably the biggest name.
I would guess she lost.
She lost. Took the silver. First time she's ever lost in an Olympic individual event. What kind of crazy thing is? I mean, how good is that?
And the other thing about the swimming event, there's some young people swimming in this thing. The one from Canada, 16 years old. I don't know what I was doing at 16, but it wasn't preparing for an Olympic event. And so you see this, you just think, ooh, good, tough kids.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's fun to watch. You got your mix. There's so much going on. They said on Saturday there were 23 sports that started. Well, how do you keep up with all of it? You try to glean out what you can. A little table tennis, a little ping pong, a little badminton. Just so you get a flavor of it, so you can say you watched a little bit. To me, I enjoy watching some of everything. Just not the, okay, we're going to finish this Olympic thing up by talking about 3-on-3 or 3x3 or 3x3
basketball,
whatever the heck they want to call it. So Saturday morning I got up, I slept until 8 o'clock. It felt delicious. It was awesome. I felt like I'd beat the Kaiser, whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, I slept till 8. So I went downstairs, I'm going to take a shower, and I'm like, wait, I'm going to see what's on the Olympics. Boom. 3x3 basketball. So I sit down, and as I watched it, I got more and more aggravated. Because I'm going to put it to you this way, folks. So this is how I talk with my children. So it's basketball and cocaine. It's basketball and cocaine because of this. There's a 12-second shot clock. It's not even fun to watch because it's like watching a bunch of 6-year-olds and it's like they're firing up the basketball willy-nilly. They're trying to do whatever and they're fouling the heck out of each other and no fouls are being called. I told my wife, I went upstairs and said, Nita, I said, I just watched 3x3 basketball because I think she was annoyed that I wasn't helping because we were getting ready for a birthday party. And I said, I'll never watch 3x3 or 3-on-3 basketball ever again because as I watched it, I got more and more aggravated because it was bad basketball, George.
Well,
bad basketball.
There are 3-on-3 leagues
all over the place.
Yeah, all over the place, and I guess that's probably where the popular grew. And I'll tell you a story later of a game that I played in an evening I played with 3-on-3. But whether or not this has anything to do with 5-on-5 basketball is.
I think it has nothing to do with. There's no. I mean, yeah, they pick and roll a little bit.
I used to have drills with 2 forwards and a center, but that's as close as Randy to get 3-on-3 basketball.
There's only 4 people to a team, and they're always subbing in. It seems like to get fresh bodies out there. I get it, but that 12-second thing. By the time you rebound it, take it outside the 3-point line, and of course the 3-point line is only the 2-point line because it's 2s and 1s. So 3-pointers are worth double instead of 1.5 times they're worth double. And you played at 21 and they play only a 10-minute game, but it takes like 45 minutes to play the game, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. It's all over. 3x3 basketball, thank you, but I've had enough.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what.
I said I spoke my piece. I monologued my way into a corner because there's probably people out there are going to be like, he doesn't know what he's talking. Anyway.
Yeah, the Roger Bennett of 3-on-3 basketball. So we have. But I have to agree with you. It doesn't resemble basketball, and so it resembles throwing balls in a hoop. That's all it does. Yeah, I agree.
What else you got for the Olympics?
What else? The Olympics. Well, I tell you, August 3rd is when it starts, and I'll be getting up in the middle of the night. And,
wrestling, everybody. In case you hadn't realized where he was going with this. Yes, I knew we couldn't. Yeah.
So. I'll hang on till then, and at that point in time, I already have another show. I think before it starts. It starts on a Tuesday after a show, but I'll be giddyish by then.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so. I do enjoy that. 3M Open.
3M Open. That's where you want to go next.
Well, I just want to make mention over there in Blaine. They had Saturday going with 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. And they had the apex of 250 and 300-yard tee shots going about 100 yards. I guess it was really, really difficult playing.
I didn't get to see much on Saturday, but I agree that the scores, because after the first round, -7 was in the lead. 3 players at -7, so I'm like, heck, we're going to go -20, 22, to win. Well, I got home on Sunday or Saturday, and the scores were only like -12, -13, and I'm like, boys, what's going on? Well, then, things turned out, but Cameron Champ is the champ.
He is, and he came back, and I guess at the beginning of the day, he kind of slowed up, and then he just blew them all away, and so, it was good to, I hope
how many of you have ever, I'm going to ask, how many people have ever heard of Cameron Champ before you won yesterday at the 3M Open?
No, I never did.
Okay, do you realize, here's the stat on him that they said right at the end of the broadcast. The last 3 years, there are only 4 players, 27 years and younger, that have won one event on the PGA Tour each of the last 3 years. Colin Morikawa, everybody's heard of Colin, right?
Yeah,
Bryson DeChambeau.
You heard of him too.
Everybody's heard of him. Got to think, who am I missing? John Rahm.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, we're talking 3 out of the top 6 players in the world, 5 players in the world right there, and Cameron Champ is the 4th. That is 27 years or younger, who has won at least once on the tour in each of the last 3 years.
Well, that's interesting.
Put that into perspective, because that is a stat to me. Like I said, those first 3 names that I mentioned, everybody knows them. They've all got a major. Well, Cameron Champ doesn't, but he's got to win each year of the last 3 years, and he's 27 years of age or younger. So I thought that was interesting.
The course was kind of described as a giant air fryer on Saturday. It was over 90 degrees and the wind was blowing, and Champ went out there and got the job done. I mean, I'll tell you, golf is physical under those conditions, and to do that for 3 days in a row.
4 days, yeah.
4 days.
Yeah.
No, it was kind of interesting. Anyway.
I have to get down there.
There's a lot of tournaments. There's a lot of tournaments, golf tournaments, remaining, and so it's kind of nice to see that, this all kind of took off. And Blaine, I used to play that golf course, remarkably enough. I used to put a lot of balls in one of their little lakes.
Well, apparently the one around the 18th hole is pretty magnetic, because
it is.
What did they say, 123 hit into the water on hole 18 just this week.
That's
crazy.
I would hit.
These are some of the best players in the world.
I would hit a low shot, and it would glance off the water and pop up into the middle of. I never planned it that way.
But it would work that way.
It would work that way. Yeah. Interesting.
Where do you want to go next?
Well, let's just, as long as we came up here, let's just talk a little bit about the Twins, because Jen says Nelson Cruz, and there's a lot of people that were very upset about losing Nelson Cruz. I, for the one, have seen Moneyball, and I know why they do this. And actually, for Nelson Cruz, it was probably best for everybody involved. I hope that he would recycle and they'd pull him back.
They could.
I think he loves Minnesota. And right now, the Rays got themselves a dandy. And I watched him just happen to flip, and I saw him get his dinger right off the bat, and I thought, it looks the same.
Yeah, I think gives him a chance to win a world championship. The Twins got a couple of young arms that one's going to pitch in the Olympics. The other one, they're 25 and 24 years old. My prediction is they will pitch for the Twins before the end of the season comes. That's my opinion. That's what I think is going to happen. I think was the right thing to do. Of course, we're getting the feeling from reading in the newspaper, Jose Barrios wants a big contract, deserves a big contract, but it doesn't sound like the Twins are wanting to put that much money out.
And I don't know why, because if there's anybody on that pitching staff that deserves it, it's Barrios, and so I hope that they can settle the differences in there, but.
Okay, so they signed.
The fact that they're even in this trouble, the blame belongs to the Twins, as far as I'm concerned.
They're talking about, they signed Donaldson to a lot of money.
Yes.
He probably hasn't produced for the money that they signed him for. But I sat down here and Jen told us that the Buxton thing, which I didn't know anything about, that they either basically kind of have decided that if they can't extend him before the trade deadline on Thursday, Friday, they're probably going to. The guy who wrote the article said, I think they're going to end up trading Buxton because they can't sign him to a long-term deal. They offered him 7 years, about $80 million. Well, for a guy who's 27 years old and who hasn't played more than 75 games in a season, 100 games in a season,
gets hurt.
He has to prove. To me, I think he has to prove it. But there's some team out there that is going to take him and give him a boatload of money, because they haven't had to deal with the heartache that the Twins have had to do so. Barrios, Buxton, where is Donaldson in this trade deadline? I mean, are we still sellers? Are there enough buyers out there? Are we going to get rid of a Jorge Polanco? I've been saying this for weeks. It's tough.
Well, there are people saying clean house and start from scratch. I mean, you got to keep us the deal, but.
This is only a half a season away from being in the playoffs.
I know.
And we're saying blow it up.
Yeah. I don't see that.
I don't see it either. They almost got no hit on Saturday night.
Yes.
The offense looked, besides the 2 solo home runs on Sunday, the offense even, Rocco had to admit in the news clip, or the clip that I put on the news on the sports this morning, that his team's offense is pathetic, basically.
Well, and so they get rid of the Nelson Cruz. That's not going to help it out.
That is not going to help it when you pick up 2 pitchers. Yeah. I think he's trying to call out some of his guys who need to have better at bats. Miguel Sano, we haven't mentioned him, but is he on the trade block? Because I think no, because Paul Delly basically came out and said now that Kirilloff is hurt and done for the season, and we got rid of Cruz, this is going to make Sano an everyday player. He's going to have to go out there, and we're going to find out by the end of the season whether he can play or whether he can play. So, will the Twins trade him? Probably not, because I think they want to wait till the end of the season to find out.
I don't think they will either, and I don't. You know, my nightmare is
yes, the whole
David Ortiz. I see that all the time.
You cannot say Miguel Sano on the show without thinking David Ortiz. Everybody, if you're not thinking it at home, the next time we say Miguel Sano, you better be thinking David Ortiz again, because that's all we have.
Well, anyway, they're going to take on the last games with the Angels. We saw some good baseball players, but
Shohei finally hit a home run.
he did.
Finally got his third.
the show.
I thought they were going to shut him out for the 4 games. I thought for sure it was going to happen, but he got one in the 6th inning, and it was a solo shot.
It was nice.
So I don't feel like he hurt us
No.
a whole lot, and I think that's a good thing.
I think the best thing about him was there's a whole lot of people that got a chance to watch him play, and a man of that talent and charisma, they should get a chance to watch. They'll be able to tell their kids, I watched him play.
That's the Shohei
and that's-
Ohtani. Yeah.
So the other thing is, of course, the Tigers are coming back for 4 more. We played them an awful lot lately,
Yep.
but
When the schedule came out like 10 months ago
Yeah.
for this season, whenever it was, the Twins actually called up Major League Baseball and said, "Are you sure you've got this right? Because we played Detroit 19 times,
That's
and
12
we
games.
essentially play them like 19 times over like a 6-week period."
yeah.
And they were like, "What? This must be incorrect." And they're like, "Nope, no, that's the way it worked out. That's how it's going to be." And they'll be playing for the, I think, 9th, 10th, and 11th times this week in the last 2 weeks. So it's one of those scheduling quirks, I guess.
It is, they took care of him 4 straight, and then they lost 3 straight, and I think right now the Tigers are actually playing pretty good baseball, and so that's what scares me.
Yeah, they
about
lost.
that.
They lost a couple over the weekend to, I believe, to Kansas City. But Jonathan Scope, former Twin, as long as we always like to mention former Twins, he's been red hot. I think he had a 14-game hitting streak, I think, on Saturday. I don't know if he played on Sundays. So, anyway, speaking of streaks,
Yes.
how about Wyatt Ulrich?
Is he hitting again?
Well, here's the news. I did a little figuring, because they put out, I think last week on the show, I told you he'd reached base in 40 straight games. Okay, so here's the stat of the week, okay? He's played in 51 games for the Sioux Falls Canaries, okay?
Yeah.
He's been on base in 50 of those 51 games, including 47 in a row right now.
Oh, boy.
47 games in a row he's been on base. His batting average is .376. He just continues to find a way to get on base, whether it's by walks or by hits. He's doing the job.
After watching Moneyball, you know one thing. If you can get on base, that's very good, no matter how you do it.
How you do it.
And so there's some guys that sit around and they say, he leads the league in getting hit by a ball. Well, what did he do? Well, he got the first, however it takes. So it's amazing that he's doing that well. Really, I looked up his statistics last week. He was hitting like .377 and just hammering the ball, and it's.
Well, I know he was named mid-season all-rookie, the rookie of the mid-season for.
Yeah.
It was done by fan voting. Rightfully so. If people aren't seeing him out there and watching the American Association Baseball and don't think that he's the best rookie out there, then they're really not paying attention.
No, they're not. Yeah, no.
So,
it's since the first time I've seen him play ball, my jaw has dropped, and it stays dropped every time I see him. He is that good of a ball player.
It's a good story, and we'll
it's a
keep
great
talking
story.
about it on this show, folks.
This is what small town baseball in the USA
what
is
it's
all about.
Anything else baseball-wise you want to discuss?
Let's say, no, that kind of pretty much.
The trade deadline
much covered
is coming this weekend, or this
Yes.
end of this week. So things are going to get busy. There was a smattering of trades today. Nothing that was, in my mind, earth-shattering enough to make the wrap.
I'm not sure how much is going to change, and somebody suggested maybe the market wasn't real volatile, and so. But the newspapers, the sports columnists, and everything, they have to get some predictions in, and it's.
I think Tampa Bay made a move, like I said, to get another stick.
Yeah.
They felt like they could use that type of player, and I think there are going to be other teams that are out there that, again, are looking to, San Diego made a trade for the second baseman from Pittsburgh who's leading the league in hits. All that San Diego saying, hey, look, if we're going to get to San Francisco and we're going to beat the Dodgers, we got to have another guy in the lineup. So it's coming. There's going to be stuff out there.
There is. Now, let's talk just a little bit of football.
Okay. Do you want to talk the Vikings or you want to talk?
Well, let's talk college first.
You want to talk college football?
We want to talk about Oklahoma and Texas planning on leaving the Big 12 and going to the SEC. That gives them 16 teams.
Okay, I'll ask it this way, George, because I want to get right to the chase on this topic. Does this change? We talked about how the kids being able to make money was going to blow up the NCAA. Does this blow up NCAA football? I mean, to me, it's over as we know it because the Big 12 is done. It cannot be considered a Power 5 conference anymore. So now you narrowed it to 4. Some people might say that the Pac-12 really isn't a Power 5 conference, and some people might say that the ACC is not a Power 5 conference because all you have is Clemson.
So you got the SEC and the Big Ten.
So now you're down to the SEC and the Big Ten and Clemson and maybe Notre Dame. Well, if you go back and look the last couple of years, that's pretty much what it's been. And now they're proposing a 12-team tournament, and pretty soon you might as well just say, okay, we're going to let these other guys in, but it's going to come down to the SEC and the Big Ten every year, although Clemson will have their whatever. To me, this is bad. This is bad for college football.
This is
bad.
This is teams reaching for television money.
How in the blazes could Texas need money? They've got their own network with ESPN.
Exactly.
They've got money coming out of their wazoo, and it's not enough yet.
And Oklahoma's the same way. And I think that this is, they're going to take this SEC and turn that into the one super powerhouse. I mean, when was the last time another team won a national championship?
And Clemson. I think Ohio State in 2014, Clemson in the SEC. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, this is not, to me, is not good for college football. I really like to know who initiated the conversation. I can't believe the SEC reached out to Texas and Oklahoma. It had to be the other way.
This is what they said. In December, the SEC announced a deal with ESPN that will, according to people familiar with its terms, pay the league, that is the SEC, $300 million a year if they did this. And it's, the addition of Oklahoma and Texas would give the college new leverage for the rights agreement whose value could skyrocket with the arrival of these two powerhouses. It destroys all equitability, and I just knew that you'd have some response to this.
Here's my.
All that
You remember back when it was the Big 8, okay? Because you could go play 7 conference games.
Yes.
Here's what I don't like about the Big 10 and these conferences. You can't play everybody. Can't play everybody in basketball. Can't play everybody in football. So how do you judge who's the best? So to me, it's almost like you become SEC East, SEC West, and these are your 2 conferences, and okay, they play at the end and whatever else. It's not
well,
good.
and they're gonna probably have to. 16 teams are gonna have to do something because, like you say, they can't play each other, and they're gonna have to have some,
And now
kind
you
of
start
elimination
dividing
type
West
tournament.
and East. So you put Texas and Oklahoma on the West half, and now you got Georgia and is it Alabama and Florida over? I mean, where does the divide? Does Ellis? Which way does it all go? I mean, there's a lot of good teams there, and it's bad.
The other thing about college football, the buzz is on all the camps. The money that the new NCAA rules, and what they're going to do with that. Oh,
somebody sat there, Carlo.
oh,
Anyway.
somebody could, and so they're talking about how are we going to maximize this, and I think the coaches are in favor of their kids to be able to do that, and of course there are a lot of famous college football players that are going to make money off of this, and so this is going to put another twist in the whole circumstance. It really is, and it's college football and college sports per se is never going to really be the same.
No,
We'll have
No.
to accommodate that.
it's a sad day, and when we start talking like that, because
Well, that's why we'll go to North Dakota and watch the NDSU game. I mean, there's still football around to watch, and not to
I agree.
mention
so.
UMD.
How about the Vikes? Training camp starts on Wednesday.
Let's just go through the Vikes a little bit. We've got a couple of things that the questions that came out of the paper today were, what's the starting secondary going to look like? And everybody's kind of predicting that the defensive secondary. Of course, last year the defensive secondary was probably one of the worst in football. I think
defense
it's in
as
general. But I think that they are going to improve considerably, and I mean, the money that they're paying back there for Patrick Peterson and Bashad Breeland, they better get some. I mean, and these are top quality people.
Yeah, they had to do something.
They had to do something.
It was,
and you got Jeff Gladney, the 220 first rounder,
who's not probably going to be
who's
around
probably
this year
not going to be there.
because of the felony rape charge or whatever it is. I forget.
These guys never learn. And at safety, free agent Xavier Woods is going to replace Anthony Harris. So I'm not sure just what exactly is going to happen here, but and they're going to be young back there, and they're going to be at the same time experienced.
Yeah, Patrick Peterson, I think, is the key to that. He can stay healthy and be that shutdown corner that they're hoping he can be. That would go a long way in helping the secondary.
And of course, you would agree that one of the worst problems they had last year was the pass rush. And so now, I think they've worked real hard trying to take care of that. Whether they have or not, we shall know.
Well, I think they're banking a lot on Daniil Hunter, and I don't think Daniil Hunter is sold in and wearing purple. I think he wants out, and I have a feeling that when training camp comes to an end, he may no longer be with the Vikings, because I don't think he wants to be here.
No,
You can't make a guy play
He's the key
hard.
to their pass rush. And if he doesn't go, the rest of them probably aren't going to go as well. So, yeah. So if they can get him working, but boy, they say that he's popping right now. He's ready to go.
Well, I hope these people are right, because I just get the impression that he'd rather be in a whole lot of other places other than Minneapolis. But anyway,
Let's talk O-line.
okay.
I mean, if there's one issue that they have to do is they have to protect the quarterback, and they have to open some holes for probably one of the best running backs in football. And regardless of that, they're still going to play a pretty traditional offense. I mean, 25 to 30 passes a game, not 50.
Well, you want to talk about the issue with the offensive line coach and the fact that he was in charge of the running game and he's no longer a part of the staff?
That is an issue. You bet it's
Big
an
issue.
because I'm not so sure he didn't invent that running game.
It's going to be interesting to see how that changes the dynamic. Didn't want to get didn't want to get vaccinated for COVID, and so the Vikings let him go.
Let him go.
Said we'll find somebody else to do it. We're gonna be going down that road. We're gonna get vaccinated, and if you don't want to be here and do that, then we'll find somebody else.
Well, and I guess, and I'll tell you, I'm the last one to question coaches because, I like Mike Zimmer. I think that they for the most part, I sometimes wonder if they have the best coaching staff in football, and so, that could be a term. I think it was an issue last year when their defense was so bad, and it must have drove the coach just nuts.
I'm sure.
So it's so.
You want to talk about having sleepless nights? That'll do it to you when you're giving up 422 points or whatever it was.
So the fourth question is Kirk Cousins. He's how well is he going to do? And you got Kellen Mond right behind him. What'll he look like?
So he's at least a year away in my mind. I don't see him being a replacement. He's a work in progress. If the season is gonzo by the 11th, 12th game, might they put him in there to get him some experience? maybe, but they're paying Kirk Cousins $84 million over 3 years.
Well, statistically, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in football. So it's
I know there's a lot of people,
agree.
a lot of haters out there, but I ain't one of them.
No, I'm not either. But it'll be interesting to watch one play. They got 3 preseason games, and they're not going to put out Cousins out there that whole
No.
time. So
Oh, no.
they're going to give him some chance. And
Absolutely.
of course, the 5th question is, how's our kicking situation? Because
The Minnesota Vikings kicking situation, it's horse crap, of course.
well,
Because as soon as they put that purple jersey on, they can't put the ball. Yeah, they can't punt and they can't kick.
they go from all pro to
all high
go.
school or
yeah,
something.
Yeah.
The Vikings put Jalen Twyman on waivers today, the kid who got shot here a couple months ago, hoping that he'll clear waivers and they can bring him back. It's not that they've given up on the kid, they just had to find a way to do it a little bit differently than what they had before the shooting. And they signed a wide receiver over the weekend.
They did.
We got Dede Westbrook, I believe.
Yeah,
and,
Dede is. I like that name, Dede, and he's been having a couple of good years.
And his coach at Jacksonville the last couple of years is the new wide receivers coach. So.
Yes. He had an ALC done last year, and he said that he has come back. But you know, in professional football, you can't get by on 1 receiver. You can't get by on 2 receivers. You need 3 solid receivers to make your passing game. And it's just, you know, and so if he can fill that other one, that'd be great.
So I was resting up just before coming out here because you know you got to get rested up. I almost fell asleep in the chair resting up so nicely,
boy.
and I almost missed like the wake-up call. I was just like, holy crap. Anyway, Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I just seem to have him up here on my.
Did you hear what happened today?
No, what did he?
Oh, the Packers are trying to suck up. So the rumor is they voided, not this year, they voided the 2023 part of his contract. Okay? The Packers agreed to sit down with him at the end of the season to discuss how they're going to go forward because they really didn't want to do that this year. They also have agreed to adjust his contract so he still gets the same amount of money. They did the Tom Brady thing. They extended his money out so that they can go sign somebody so the cap hit is less this year. So they have tried to accommodate him. They're trying to make him happy. He still has not agreed that he's coming to training
Look at
camp.
what I put down in my notes.
Yeah.
Brady envy.
Brady envy.
And he says, what is he envious of? He's MVP. He has all the rest of it. He says, they took Tom Brady, brought him in, and said, what do you want to win? He says, you want this guy, you want this, you want this. What kind of offense do you want to run? You want this, want this, want this? I'm not sure the owner of the Pack has allowed that to happen, and I think that that's probably why Aaron Rodgers is
Till they go out and get him 1 or 2 wide receivers.
Yes.
He's not going to be a happy guy. He just, yeah, they're letting him throw the ball around, but he's trying to throw it to third string guys all the time. And Jordy Nelson, come on now, he made Jordy Nelson famous because he could get him the ball and whatever else.
He did, and I'm going to tell you, know, the other thing is that he had truly remarkable season last year.
Yeah.
One of the best quarterback seasons I've ever seen. And, you know, and if whether or not that was just an anomaly even for Aaron Rodgers, I think right now that there's no way that Tampa Bay would go back into Green Bay. Well, I can't say that because I don't think Green Bay is going to be as good a team as they were last year either, and beat Aaron Rodgers. He is, right now, in my mind, he's a better quarterback than Tom Brady.
See, to me, we're going to go to the front of the show and we're going to go to the back of the show. We talked about the Twins earlier and not wanting to spend money to keep Barrios and Buxton and all these guys because they don't want to get in. They spent their money and it didn't work. So now all of a sudden we're going to go into this, well, we're not going to pay anybody and we'll just keep building and we'll keep fans.
Get the bus going from St. Paul.
We'll keep everybody believing that we're doing the things right and they're not doing it. The Packers are doing the same thing. They're nickel and diming. They're saying, okay, we've got one of the best quarterbacks. He'll get us through enough to keep everybody coming to Lambeau Field. Not that they have to do because those guys are, what's the right word for, they're in a cult? The Packer fans,
but
they're
you know,
in a cult.
but it came up, and he said the difference between Brent Favre and Aaron Rodgers was Brett he loved his crowd, he loved his audience, he would do anything to satisfy and make them happy. Aaron Rodgers, he's hardcore. He is just, He is there to do the job, and he's going to take you apart. There's not a lot of fuzzies on this guy. He just goes out
Did
there
they
and does
announce the new host for Jeopardy yet?
it. No, but if he can do that, might get him some fuzzies.
Yeah, they'll see. Maybe he'll just say the heck with you guys, and I'll stay
Well,
there.
and somebody said that he, he says he just simply retire, but he has a routine that he takes all summer long, and works out in Los Angeles. He has not missed a workout. So he's going to come back to camp, and there is nothing going to be shy about this guy and his throwing arm.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he could stay at a training camp and show up on
36 years
September
old?
12th and be ready to go.
But he's 36 years old. He's got football left in
He's
him.
got lots of football left.
Yeah.
You want to talk soccer?
Let's talk a little
You
soccer.
want to talk a little loons?
You know what they did the other day?
I think I know where you're going with this, but I'll let
They
you
won
say it.
again.
They won again?
Yes.
You know what the better part of it was? It was their first comeback win of the year.
They were behind and came back and won. Yeah.
Which is, they scored, I think, in like the 70-something minute, and then scored in the 85th minute. It was kind of exciting to watch, and Robin Laud did it. What a pass. Did you see the pass?
I did.
When Reynoso let that pass go, I'm like, what are you, that's what you're doing. Yeah, you made it look pretty simple.
2 years ago, I didn't even know who this guy was, and all of a sudden, you just take a look, and he stands out in the field so much that
You got to stand up and notice.
you can't but notice him.
So the Loons started out pretty tough. Lost, I think, their first three matches. I don't want to compare them to the Lynx because the Lynx lost their first 4. But they're sitting in 6th place. They play LAFC on Wednesday, who's in 5th place. If they'd win that one, they'd move up to 5th place. And they're playing very good soccer right now. It's fun to watch. Yeah.
No, it is fun to watch, and it kind of, it drags me in, and then pretty soon I'm seeing the first part of the first half, and then all of a sudden I got some popcorn and I'm watching the second half. But it is fun to watch.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
The expansion draft took place last Wednesday.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
The Seattle Kraken took their 30 players, and I think they got some good ones. I think they got a pretty good one from the Wild and Carson Soucy, the UMD Bulldog, the defenseman who is now a member of the Kraken. And it was sad to see him go, but can I say it this way, and I might be wrong on this, there might be people out there, hockey gurus, that might disagree with me. If we were going to lose Soucy or Kakinen, I was happier that it was Soucy. As much as I love the dog, I feel Kapanen is the goaltender of the future, although we drafted one in the first round,
Yes.
but he's also 20 whatever years old. So you can never have enough goaltenders, I guess, is the way of thinking about it. But Carson Soucy, that's when is going to hurt, because now they got to replace 2 guys on the back line there on the defense.
Suter and Soucy.
So yeah,
No, it's like, again, one of those things where, I really enjoyed watching Suter and Parisi play hockey, but you knew halfway through the season that it was going to end this way, and
at some point they were going to have to buy him out.
They were
I
gonna
didn't know
have
if
to
they
buy
could
him
do
out.
it. I didn't know if they would do it, but I'm glad they did, because it's going to, in the long run, I think it helps this team. Maybe not this coming year, but down the road. I know the salary cap hit is hard the next 3 years after this year, but I think it shows to me that they're willing to do what they need to do to try to get to that next level.
They see a future on this hockey team, and I do too. This is a high flying. I tell you, you've never heard me say this before, but I'm looking forward to next hockey season.
There you go.
Jesus, don't tell anybody.
Don't tell any of his wrestling guys that
Yeah.
he said that out loud. Jack Peart from Grand Rapids.
He did.
Got drafted
Mr. Hockey.
Mr. Hockey got drafted 54th overall by the Minnesota Wild. So he's headed to St. Cloud State. I wish him well, my alma mater, St. Cloud State, but I hope when you play the Bulldogs you don't do very well. But Peart is a good player. There's a reason why he was Mr. Hockey, and it's going to be fun to watch. The other thing about the NHL draft, 4 of the first 5 guys drafted either played for Michigan currently,
Yes.
or were headed to Michigan to play this year.
Yes.
How good is that?
Well, and Michigan, you know, they've been playing real strong hockey the last few years, and they're not about to let that go. You know, it appears that that maize and blue wants to rule everything. Never mind.
They said, I believe, I didn't write this down and I didn't go back and double check it, but I believe they said this Owen kid, 6'6", 230-pound defenseman from Michigan, first college player drafted #1 overall in 20 years, I think they said.
Oh, really?
Which, I mean, you go and think about that. There's a lot of good college players,
juniors.
but you know, you usually get them out of the juniors,
Yeah.
or somebody from Europe. But a kid that actually played college hockey got drafted #1, and he's a big kid.
Well, in the old days, you played junior hockey for the possibility of making into the pros. Now you play junior college for the possibilities of finding a good college to go to and get an education while you're preparing for the
ready.
pros. But you know, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. You know, there's a lot of good hockey players in junior hockey.
Free agency gets started this week
So
for the
where's that
NHL.
going to go?
Oh, well, we know Guerin's got to go out and find at least one defenseman. I mean, he has to. And, of course, everybody wants him to go find a center, you know, because
They've wanted that for a while.
we need another center. But I hate to say it, in my mind, another defenseman is a higher priority after Suter got let go. They've got to go find somebody to fill that spot. And maybe one of these young kids can step up into that. Maybe not. I'm probably asking too much. But I think that's what the way they've got to get a defenseman first. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
Maybe they can splash twice. You know, they got Parisi and Suter at the same time back in 2012. Maybe they get a forward and a defenseman again this time. Wouldn't that be fun? We'll see.
Yeah.
Bastian. Oh, we probably. What a tragedy for the Gopher hockey for
Yes,
Bob Motzko and
that is just-
his son
yeah,
getting killed
20
in a
years
car
old.
accident. And just want to say it's those things you just never know when when
really
you're going to
is.
get called on, and it's too bad.
It is.
And so before we left hockey, I wanted to get that in. Canadian Bass Championship over the weekend, over 62 pounds caught by the winners, Troy Norman and James
I'm
Samsel.
kind of related to the guy that took second, Mike Wilson.
Yeah.
So, but
Mike about 3 pounds and 18 hundredths, I think, off the. Yeah. So good weekend for him.
Interesting.
What else you got before we go to the obit part of this show?
I can basically go to the old bit part of the show until you got something else to talk about.
We got to talk about two of our former teacher colleagues, more your colleagues, because I never got to teach with Jim, but
and I think
got to
I
teach
think of
with
the
Ralph.
Broncos. Ralph Ave, for many years, was assistant baseball coach and loved the game and really mathematically knew what was going out there. I got to know him my very first year of teaching, and he was teaching 8th and 9th grade mathematics, and you know, tough thing to teach.
Tough thing to do.
He was a master teacher. I watched him. We had both of my children. My son, he gave me the best advice I ever had for my son. He said, "Leave him alone; he'll be just fine." And that's kind of the way he worked. But he was truly one of the best teachers I ever worked with. The other guy is I can't even begin to talk about my relationship with him. He was an AD. I saw him as a coach. The first time I went to a Bronco basketball game when I came as a member of the faculty, Jim's out there and he's working his boys, and all of a sudden I could hear two guys behind me screaming at the referees and yelling and just really giving them the business. And I looked up, and one was the superintendent, one was the principal of the elementary school, and the other one was the superintendent of elementary school. I won't mention their names, but I looked up and I thought, oh, I guess maybe you could do that. But they loved watching him. I loved watching him coach. He had eyes in the front of his head and the back of his head, and
Jim Rolando. Really, I think you know, we can sit here and talk about what a great coach he was. We can talk about what a great athletic director he was. We can even talk about what a great fisherman he was because he was one of the best at that. But a class act guy,
the way.
right from the word go. Always out of his way to make me feel welcome in this town as a newcomer. Just always wanting to know how things were going. Like I said, we talk about class people, and when you do that, Jim Rolando has to be right up there with the class guys right up until the end. Always doing the right things. Always loved Bronco sports, and of course Donnie got back into basketball, and I think that had to be a great thing for Jim to watch. But it was a basketball family. The 4 boys, when they moved up here, they all were Broncos, all finished up as Broncos, and Jim loved the Falls. And of course, I tell people, did you know that he played in the state basketball tournament in 1945 with Ely?
Yes, with Ely.
With Ely, he was one of the guards on the team.
He's in our Hall of Fame. I think he's in Ely's Hall of Fame as well.
And he started out in North Dakota. He coached at Evelyn till he moved up to the Falls, till he changed and came up to the Falls in '71. And but I said we can sit here and talk about him. That a lot of people would just want to talk about him as a fisherman and the things they did. And I know Dave Peterson and Mike Bolstead had some great words about Jim on the radio a couple Fridays ago on their Fisherman's Net show, and I had a chance to cut that out and play that Friday morning during the sports, and talking about fishing with Lindy Riggs, and how Jim knew that lake back and forth, and how he took notes about weather conditions and all this stuff. And I had a chance to go fishing with Jim once, and I related this story the other day, but I went out fishing with him on October day, which was one of Jim's favorite times to fish because there was nobody else on the lake, so he could go where he wanted to. And I'll never forget, the first fish I caught was a crappie, and I looked at him, and it was a nice crappie back in the lake. And I'm like, we're not keeping that? It's not a walleye. We ain't taking her home today, Tim. And I'm like, okay. So we caught a few walleyes that day, but it was an experience. He knew his stuff, whether it was coaching basketball or fishing or whatever. I
went fishing with him a couple of times since I retired, and he was asking. He says, "What do you do?" I says, "Jim, I've had the opportunity to read an unlimited amount. I'm reading constantly. I'm reading very good books." He says, "Well, how many books have you read in the last year?" And I says, "I'll bet over 50. And he says, "Oh yeah." He says, "I read quite a bit too." I says, "How many books do you read?" He says, 200. And so he was a massive reader, and
I did not know this.
And when you spend time with him, you realize he's really smart. And and that at that point in time, I never once felt anything but honor going fishing with him. And we would talk about so many different things. He served in the Korean War, and I says, "Jim, do you know what unit you served in?" So I forgot. That was the end of that conversation. He didn't want to bring it up anymore, but the Pooner is he had a great life, and the walleyes on Rainy Lake are breathing a sigh of relief.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they don't have to worry about Jim coming out after him.
There was one story. He was at Grand Portage in the fall of the year, and they were doing crappies. And at the end of the fishing day, all the boats around him stood up and gave him a standing ovation. And it's just like, I had never seen that, in boats, and they give him a standing ovation. He used to give my son fishing rods here with a fish on them, and he'd pull them up. Robert would pull out a nice 5-pound walleye. He'd do all this all day, and Robert kept on reeling them in for him, and pretty soon I'm thinking, "Hey, Jim, yeah? What about my man?
Come on, give me some love, would you?"
But I tell you, he was the AD when I was wrestling coach, and he'd say, "You're playing Hibbing on Friday," and I says, "Jim, wrestlers don't play, they wrestle. And Hibbing's coming to town. If I tell them that they're going to play, they'll kick my butt. No, we don't call it play." So, okay, he'd say. But he was a great guy, and he's going to be sorely missed. And for Mary and all the kids and grandkids and all the rest of that, you can't find a better one than him.
Nope, good stuff.
Good stuff.
What else you got? You're okay after us not getting to put your blues hour on Saturday night?
No, it's amazing.
We had some technical difficulties the last handful of days at the radio station, and when George and I got to the radio station Saturday night about 9:45, there were alarms beeping and going off, and no internet, and it was chaos. And we had a couple of people message us on Facebook, and we apologize to everybody who's listening. I think we've got things figured out.
Well, that's good, because we're going back
better?
on Saturday. I can hardly wait.
So we'll get you your blues fix on Saturday night. It's been fun. When we go this Saturday night, it's going to be 3 weeks since I've done a blues hour. I'm getting a little shaky because I haven't got my fix.
No blues power there. Got to have some blues power.
Got to have some blues power.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Anything else?
That should do it. I got 17 Olympians from Minnesota that are still working hard. Be proud of. That's the most Olympians this state's ever had.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough.
We'll keep talking about it. Thanks to Randy, our fan, for coming.
Thanks.
It's been a couple of weeks since he's been here, and it's good to see him. We'll sit down and we'll BS for a little while.
We will.
I saw him out for a walk this morning. We'll see where he was heading.
He was thinking of questions for us.
Thanks, everybody.